The first time I noticed something was wrong with the house next door, it started with the curtains. Because the girl who lived there, Marissa, kept hers open every night for the 2 years I'd lived beside her. And then one week they started closing, every night, right around 9. And the light behind them changed too, from a soft lamp glow to a slow flickering orange, like candlelight that pulsed in rhythm, almost like breathing. And I started watching for it without meaning to, standing in my dark room so she couldn't see me. And around that same time, Marissa stopped going outside entirely. Her father, a quiet man named Mr. Holt, started doing every errand himself, telling neighbors she was being homeschooled now, and nobody questioned a man who smiled that easily. Except I noticed the smell drifting from their backyard some nights, something herbal and sweet underneath, wrong in a way I couldn't name. And one night I climbed the fence just far enough to look into their kitchen window, and the table was gone, replaced by a circle drawn directly onto the floor in something dark red, with candles arranged at 5 points around it, unlit at that moment, in shapes between them that made my stomach turn. Before my brain even understood why, I dropped back over the fence and didn't sleep that night. The silence next door felt heavier than silence should, like the house was holding its breath. The next morning I almost called the police, but what would I even say? So instead I started watching the pattern. And I noticed the flickering only happened on certain nights that lined up with a specific lunar phase, just after full moon, the waning days. And on the 7th night I watched, I saw Mr. Holt standing alone in the backyard at 2 in the morning, facing the fence, completely still for almost 20 minutes. And then he turned his head, just his head, toward my window, and stayed like that. I backed away from the glass so fast I knocked over a lamp. The next day, Marissa appeared at her window for the first time in weeks, and she didn't wave. She just shook her head slowly, like a warning. I started leaving notes for her. "Are you okay? Call me." And 3 days later, I got a folded page back with no real message. Just one word repeated 40 or 50 times, leaving, getting messier toward the bottom, like whoever wrote it was losing themselves in the writing. I called a non-emergency police line and described what I'd seen. And the officer who called back said a welfare check turned up nothing wrong. The kitchen floor was apparently some kind of religious mural, nothing illegal, and I felt that specific helplessness of doing the responsible thing and having it change nothing. So I decided to talk to Mr. Holt myself. Used a fake excuse about borrowing a ladder, and when he opened the door, he looked tired in a way that hadn't been there a month earlier. He led me through the house toward the garage, and the air inside felt wrong. Pressurized, like a basement even on the ground floor, with faint carved symbols on the door frames painted over, but still visible if you knew to look. Before opening the garage, he turned to me and said, "You remind me of someone she used to know. You have the right kind of attention." And when I asked what he meant, he just smiled and said, "Some people are chosen to help and some are chosen to be helped." I laughed it off and left with the ladder. But that phrase sat wrong in my gut for days. Then the dream started, always the same circle, lit candles, glowing red symbols. Marissa standing across from me saying, "You're already inside it. You just don't know which part you are yet." I woke at exactly 3:33 every night for 11 nights straight. And on the 12th, the dream didn't stop where it usually did. She reached out, touched my chest, said, "He already started yours." And I woke up with an actual faint reddish mark on my skin in the shape of one of those symbols. It took 3 days to fade. I should have left then. But something kept me watching. This certainty that if I stopped, whatever was happening to Marissa would finish with no one as a witness. 2 nights later, the circle was active again. More people this time. Ordinary-looking strangers. A woman in a cardigan, a man who looked like he worked retail, and Marissa stood in the center with her eyes closed, swaying untouched, unrestrained. And then all of them turned their heads at the exact same moment toward my window. I ducked, but I know. They saw me, the murmuring stopped. Everything went dark and nothing came that night. But the silence after felt worse than if something had. The next morning there was a small bundle of herbs tied with red thread on my doorstep, and underneath it a note in that same handwriting. Just 3 words, "You saw too much." I packed a bag that day and stayed across town for a week, barely sleeping. And when I finally drove back to check the house next door, it was empty, completely stripped. No furniture, no sign anyone had lived there in a long time. The mailman told me no one had lived in that house in over a year, that it had been vacant since the previous owners left, and I told him that was impossible. But the dust inside was thick, undisturbed, the kind that takes a year to settle. That night I went home and found something folded neatly on my closet shelf that I never put there. A single sentence in handwriting I now recognized immediately. "You were never trying to save her. You were the replacement." I haven't slept with my curtains open since, and some nights right around 9, I notice a flicker of orange light reflected faintly behind me in my own dark window. Except when I turn around, there's nothing there. Just my lamp, switched off. And lately I've noticed I close my own curtains every night now, without deciding to. Like my body remembers a rule I never agreed to follow. And sometimes, catching my reflection at exactly the wrong angle, my head looks turned slightly wrong, watching something behind me that I can't see, and I still don't know if I saved anyone, or if I just became the next set of curtains someone else is watching close.